You know, usually when we think about a map, there's this expectation of permanence.
Right, yeah, like it's a fixed thing.
Exactly.
Right.
You look at a map of your hometown and, well, the streets are just where they are. Main Street intersects with First Avenue. There's this comforting solidity to established geography.
Oh, for sure. It grounds you.
But imagine waking up one morning, stepping outside, and discovering someone had completely redrawn that hometown.
Oh, wow, yeah, like they just moved a river or something.
Literally, they bulldozed your favorite park, built a skyscraper where your childhood home used to be, and then just insisted, no, this is how it's always been.
The resulting disorientation would be, well, it would be profound.
It would be terrifying. And welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are exploring a very different kind of map, one that exists in the minds of, millions of people around the world. We're talking about the Harry Potter universe.
Which is a very, very heavily mapped universe.
Oh, incredibly. Specifically, we're looking at the upcoming HBO television series and kind of unpacking this massive, intensely passionate, fandom-wide debate over what actually constitutes canon in the wizarding world.
Yeah, and we are looking at a really fascinating case study here in how modern audiences engage with deeply entrenched fictional universes.
Right.
Because this goes far beyond just, previewing a new TV show. It delves into ownership, cultural memory, and honestly, the increasingly fragile, unspoken contract between creators and their fans.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. And if you're listening right now, I actually want you to think about your own favorite fictional universe. Think about how fiercely protective you feel when a new spin-off or a reboot is announced.
You always get that initial thrill, right?
Yeah, the thrill of returning to a world you love.
Yeah.
But then it's almost instantly overshadowed by this knot of anxiety. Like, how is this new piece of media going to fit into the world you already know inside and out?
And that anxiety, that is a defining characteristic of modern media consumption.
Cool.
To understand whether this new HBO series is going to successfully integrate into the established Harry Potter universe, we kind of first have to establish the fundamental rules of the universe itself.
Right, we need to figure out the baseline.
Exactly. We need to define what makes a story real to an audience.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the word itself, canon. In the strictest, most traditional sense of fictional works, canon just refers to a collection of texts considered to be authentic.
Right, the official record.
Yeah, they are produced directly by or officially endorsed by the original creator. If a piece of media meets that criteria, it's canon. If it doesn't, well, it's basically just classified as fan fiction.
And that textbook definition historically set really rigid boundaries. It told the audience precisely what happened and what didn't.
But things have changed, right?
Oh, massively. What's fascinating here is how modern fandoms are actively overriding that traditional definition.
Wait, how so?
Well, we are seeing a pop culture application of death of the author. It's this literary concept suggesting that once a work is published, the creator's interpretation is really no more valid than anyone else's.
Oh, interesting. So the fans just take over.
Practically speaking, yeah. When a fictional world reaches a certain level of global saturation, the audience begins to wield this massive amount of veto power over the creator.
Which I guess brings us to the dreaded R word, retcon. Retroactive continuity.
Yes, the retcon. Traditionally, a retcon was just a neutral tool, It was for expanding a narrative.
Well, just adding backstory.
Right. A writer introduces new information to previously told stories just to flesh out the world. Over time, however, the modern interpretation of that term has become heavily weaponized.
Oh, completely. It's almost a dirty word now.
It is. It now largely describes a literary failure, where established facts are clumsily adjusted, ignored, or directly contradicted by a new work. It completely shatters continuity.
Yeah, to put that into perspective, I always think of canon like the structural foundation of a house. When a creator builds a universe, they lay down the concrete, they put up the load-bearing walls.
I like that analogy.
Right. And now if you want to come in years later and paint the walls, go for it. If you want to build a sunroom in the backyard, great. That's a fun spinoff.
Right. No harm done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if a writer walks in and casually decides to just demolish a load-bearing wall, like a core undeniable truth of the lore, the structural integrity fails.
Yeah, the whole house collapses.
The whole house collapses for the fans, and they simply refuse to live in it anymore.
And we actually have a glaring, high-profile example of this exact collapse within the wizarding world, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child.
Oh, boy. Yeah. The stage play. Set, 19 years after the original books, featuring Harry's son and Draco Malfoy's son?
That's the one. And critically, this play has the original author's official backing.
Right. So by the strict dictionary definition we just went over, it is undeniable canon.
It is. The creator endorsed it. Yet the broader fandom outright denies its canonical status. It is widely, and I mean aggressively, rejected because it functions as an unfaithful retcon.
Because of the Bellatrix thing, right. The ultimate demolition of a load-bearing wall in that play is the plot point revealing that Bellatrix Lestrange and Voldemort had a secret child together.
Yes. And we connect this to the bigger picture. The violent rejection of that specific detail isn't just about shock value. It violates the deeply established psychology of the primary antagonist.
Right, it totally breaks who he is.
Exactly. Over the course of 7 novels, Voldemort is meticulously portrayed as a creature entirely devoid of human attachment.
Yeah, he doesn't care about anyone.
He is obsessed solely with his own immortality. He views himself as a singular, eternal entity. He has zero interest in legacy or heirs or romance.
So when a new story suddenly introduces a secret biological child, fans don't merely dislike the creative choice. They reject it as historically inaccurate within the fiction. Which is wild. They literally act as historians defending the historical record of a completely made-up world.
It's true. The fans feel such intense ownership over the psychological consistency of these characters that they will collectively overrule the original author.
They basically look at the creator and say, actually, you are factually incorrect about your own universe.
Yeah. And this intense, protective, almost academic ownership is the exact environment into which HBO is attempting to launch a decade-long television series.
Talk about walking into a minefield.
Seriously. The production promises incredible detail, dedicating an entire season to each book. But because fans are acting as strict historians guarding that load-bearing lore.
Every single choice the studio makes is under a microscopic level of scrutiny.
Every single one.
Especially since HBO is heavily marketing the series as a strictly faithful, book-accurate adaptation. Like, that is the explicit promise being made to the audience.
Right, that's the tagline.
But when we actually look at the production decisions behind the scenes, we start to see some massive red flags waving in the writer's room.
Yeah, let's talk about the hiring of Andy Greenwald.
Let's do it.
So he is a well-known television critic, writer, and podcaster. He has a really impressive industry resume. And he was announced as a writer for the series.
Which sounds great on paper.
It does. However, during a podcast appearance, he revealed details that sent immediate ripples of anxiety through the core fandom. Because he admitted he hasn't actually read all the books.
Wait, what? He's writing for a book-accurate show and hasn't read them all?
Yeah, he mentioned reading them to his daughter until she was old enough to read them herself. And at that point, she kind of just left him in the dust.
Oh, man. That's a bad look.
And perhaps more concerning for the purists, he openly discussed wanting to explore, quote, other creative possibilities within this world.
Oh, there are the alarm bells. Right there. Because if this were a spin-off, say, like a political thriller about the Ministry of Magic or a historical drama about the founding of Hogwarts' creative possibilities, is exactly what you want from a writer.
Oh, absolutely. You'd want fresh ideas.
But for a show whose entire marketing identity hinges on being a direct, faithful retelling, that phrase is highly dangerous.
Extremely.
It's like paying for a meticulous restoration of a historic Renaissance painting, right?
Yeah.
Sit back to watch the master at work, and suddenly the restorer breaks out a can of neon pink spray paint because they want to explore creative possibilities.
That is a perfect analogy. The neon pink might make for a striking piece of modern art, but you are destroying the historical artifact in the process.
Exactly.
You cannot market a project as a strict, faithful adaptation while simultaneously letting your writers publicly muse about taking massive creative liberties.
It creates an immediate dissonance that just fractures audience trust before a single frame is even shot.
It really does.
So, what does this all mean for the visual side of things? Because that dissonance isn't just happening with the writing staff, right? It's heavily present in the casting discussions as well.
Right, the casting is a whole other debate.
Let's look at the casting of Papa Esidu as Severus Snape.
Right, and by all accounts, he is an actor with undeniable talent, incredible presence, and serious dramatic chops.
Sure, great actor.
But his casting represents a radical visual departure from both the specific physical descriptions written in the novels and Alan Rickman's legendary cinematic portrayal.
Yeah, it's a huge shift.
And this raises an important question. What is the actual goal of this new series? Because in this specific franchise, Canon is no longer just about plot mechanics. It is deeply entwined with visual continuity.
But wait, let me push back on that for a second. Why is visual continuity so vital for a television show that is supposedly adapting a book? Shouldn't the text be all that matters?
Well, it comes down to how the human brain relies on cognitive shortcuts. When millions of people read a book, they generate a loose, kind of fuzzy composite image of a character.
Right.
But when a wildly successful film franchise provides a flesh and blood actor who perfectly embodies the tone of the text, the brain takes a shortcut. It overwrites the fuzzy composite with the actor's face.
Oh, that makes sense. So Alan Rickman basically became the permanent file in our brains.
Exactly. Alan Rickman's deliberate diction, the specific cut of his hair, that severe black silhouette that became physically hardwired into the fandom's neural pathways as the definitive objective reality of Severus Snape.
So by completely changing the character's visual identity, HBO is actually fighting against the audience's own biology.
They are. When you introduce a radically different visual silhouette, even performed by a brilliant actor, you trigger literal cognitive dissonance in the viewer.
Right, the brain is going, wait, that's not the file we have saved for this.
Precisely. It immediately pulls the viewer out of the immersion. It constantly reminds them that they're watching a reimagining, not a faithful translation of the world they already know.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If strict book accuracy and rigid continuity are the ultimate metrics for success, how on earth do we explain the original 8 movies?
Oh, that is the million-dollar question.
Because they are universally beloved cultural juggernauts. But if you actually sit down and cross-reference them with the novels, they are incredibly flawed when it comes to lore.
Oh, they are riddled with omissions and alterations.
Huge ones.
They drastically simplified complex character arcs. They dropped massive lore-heavy plot lines entirely. I mean, look at the Marauders' full backstory or all the nuances of the house elf subplot.
Totally gone.
And they frequently missed the darker, more mature themes of the later novels in favor of cinematic spectacle.
Not to mention, they completely changed the geographical layout of Hogwarts Castle almost every other movie.
Oh, the moving castle, yeah.
You would literally walk out of the Gryffindor common room and end up in a totally different part of Scotland depending on which director was at the helm.
It's so true. Yet they succeeded on a scale few franchises ever reach. And they did that because they flawlessly captured the essential magic.
Yeah, they nailed the vibe.
They nailed the atmosphere, the tone, and the emotional core of the narrative. And in doing so, they achieved something remarkable. They accidentally created a secondary canon.
Secondary canon, I love that concept.
Right.
We're talking about elements that absolutely never existed in the text, but are now treated as just indisputable gospel by the global fandom.
Exactly. Think about the sweeping, specific visual design of the Great Hall. Think about the specific design of the wands in the later movies.
Oh, and perhaps most importantly, think about John Williams' musical score.
Yes.
Like, Hedwig's theme is not a sequence of words on a page, but that melody is now inextricably woven into the core identity of the Harry Potter universe. You literally cannot separate the two.
Which really highlights the staggering irony of the HBO show's marketing strategy.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Because they are boldly promising to be faithful to the books, completely separate from the movies. But what do they do for their very first teaser trailer?
They use the exact cinematic font from the films.
They show the specific movie design of Hogwarts with the floating candles.
And they blasted the John Williams score.
Exactly. Their very first step was to steal the vibe of the movies, to sell their supposedly book-accurate show.
It is so deeply ironic, but, from a psychological standpoint, it's highly strategic.
That was brilliant.
The studio is utilizing nostalgia as a bridge. That teaser trailer was just a deliberate signal designed to bypass the analytical brain and hit the emotional center of the audience. It's basically saying, hey, don't worry, this is still the exact feeling you remember.
Yeah, they are standing on the shoulders of giants. They're relying on the cultural memory that is already deeply seated.
So they are trying to have their cake and eat it too.
They are. And if they can successfully blend the emotional atmosphere and visual shorthand established by the films with the textual depth, nuance, and character development of the books, which are the vital elements the movies had to cut for runtime, they could theoretically create the ultimate definitive version of the story.
Right. But with novels, blockbuster movies, controversial stage plays, and massive video games all fighting for space in our collective memory, we need to bring some structural order to this chaos.
We definitely need a hierarchy.
Yeah, we are going to build the definitive tier list of canonicality for this universe. Not just a list, but an exploration of how much the fandom actually trusts these different pieces of media.
Okay, let's do it. We must start with the unquestioned bedrock, the core of the foundation.
Tier 1.
Tier 1. That is the 7 main novels published between 1997 and 2007. There is zero debate here. This is the true, unadulterated core canon.
Everything else is measured against this standard.
Exactly. Every other piece of media is judged by how well it aligns with these 7 books.
All right, so moving one step out from the core, we hit Tier 2, the visual media adaptations. This is where the 8 original films live.
Right.
And we just established that they contradict the books and alter the lore sometimes, but they sit comfortably right below the novels because, well, they were endorsed by the author at the time. And crucially, they fit the emotional framework of the universe so perfectly that the fandom just accepts them as a valid parallel truth.
That's a perfect way to describe it. Now, Tier 3 is where the HBO show currently hovers.
In a state of canon limbo.
Right. Exactly. Limbo, it has the stated intent of being perfectly accurate, so it's near the films. But until it actually airs and proves it hasn't demolished any load-bearing walls with its creative possibilities, it remains untrusted.
Okay, fair enough. But now we enter the battlefield.
Oh, boy.
This is where the tension between official legal definitions and actual fan acceptance completely shatters. I am looking at Tier 4 and Tier 5, the Fantastic Beasts film trilogy versus the video game Hogwarts Legacy.
Right. And according to the strict clinical definition of canon, the Fantastic Beasts trilogy sits higher on the hierarchy. It's Tier 4.
Ugh, I hate that.
I know, but it's irrefutable canon solely because the original author wrote the screenplays herself. Authorship dictates ultimate authority.
I cannot accept that premise. I absolutely refuse to rank Fantastic Beasts above Hogwarts Legacy just because of a signature on a studio contract.
But legally.
But Fantastic Beasts is a mess. It breaks established timelines, it forces characters into eras they shouldn't exist in, and it introduces these bewildering magical concepts that just shatter the rules of the universe.
You're not wrong about the lore breaks.
Right. Meanwhile, you have Hogwarts Legacy down in Tier 5, set 100 years in the past, and it meticulously honors the structural integrity of this world. It understands the mechanics of the magic system, the architectural layout, the tone. The fandom universally praises it as a masterpiece of world building.
I hear you. But the clinical definition does not care about quality or fan approval. The original author did not write the narrative for the video game. Therefore, technically, legally, and clinically, it sits lower on the hierarchy of absolute authority.
But the clinical definition is failing the reality of the fandom. Why should an inferior, lore-breaking movie outrank a lore-respecting game just because of who held the pen? The fans are the ones keeping this universe alive. If the game feels more authentic to the rules of the world than the author's own recent writing, the game should be higher canon.
And your frustration here perfectly highlights a massive seismic shift in modern media consumption.
Tell me I'm right.
Well, you are fiercely arguing for emotional canon, the idea that fidelity to the spirit, tone, and structural rules of a universe supersedes legal authorship.
Yes, exactly that.
We're watching audiences collectively realize that they care far more about the architectural integrity of the fictional house than they care about whose name is on the deed.
Yes. If I live in the house, I want the walls to be solid, regardless of who poured the concrete. If a game studio builds a better addition to the house than the original architect, the fans are going to move into the new addition and just board up the author's wing.
And this raises an incredibly important question about the future of intellectual property.
Mm-hmm.
We are witnessing a real-time conflict between corporate IP laws and cultural ownership.
Yeah, it's wild to see it play out.
And this conflict becomes undeniably clear when we look at the absolute bottom of our hierarchy, the fringe rejected media.
Yes. Tier 6 and 7, the basement.
The basement.
This is where the cursed child lives, completely exiled by the community despite the author's endorsement, just because it moved the load-bearing wall of Voldemort's psychology.
Right.
And it shares that basement with, decades of inconsistent, unplayable, lore-ignoring cash grab video games that the fandom collectively pretends never existed.
So, stepping back to look at this entirely mapped-out territory, the ultimate takeaway is clear. The creators of the new HBO series are stepping onto a precarious, highly volatile stage.
Oh, absolutely.
They are attempting an incredibly complex high-wire act between adapting a sacred text and reinterpreting it for a new generation.
And then to actually succeed, they can't just be a dry clinical transcription of the novels. They have to honor that powerful secondary canon, the visual and emotional legacy established by the films, while simultaneously delivering the deep textual nuance that the movies missed.
Right, they have to thread that needle.
And they have to execute this flawless balancing act without alienating a fiercely protective fan base that, as we've seen, will instantly and ruthlessly reject any unfaithful writing.
It is a monumental, perhaps impossible task. But when you, the listener, sit down to watch that premiere episode in a few years, you will be watching with a completely different perspective.
Oh, for sure. You're going to see all the strings.
Exactly. You won't just be passively following the plot. You'll be analyzing exactly how the creators are managing that delicate balance. You will be uniquely equipped to spot whether they are carefully reinforcing the established foundation or if they are recklessly swinging a sledgehammer at a load-bearing wall.
Which leaves us with one final, wildly provocative thought to chew on.
Lay it on us.
Think about this. If a creator eventually writes an official sequel to a beloved property, and the entire fandom universally rejects it, but then a dedicated fan writes a brilliant, totally lore-accurate continuation that everyone absolutely loves and accepts.
Oh, wow.
At what point does the community actually own the canon, rather than the original author who truly gets the right to draw the map?
That is a fascinating boundary to leave you pondering. Keep questioning the structure, the rules, and the history of the stories you love.
Absolutely.
We look forward to having you back to explore the next set of blueprints.
See you next time on The Deep Dive.